All right, let's jump right in. Today we're going to take a deep dive into creating lasting impact, the legacy of masculine wisdom.
By Conrad Riker.
Exactly, by Conrad Riker. Now, I got to say, this book really digs deep into some fascinating ideas about, well, masculinity, obviously,
Right.
leadership, and how men can kind of navigate uh, all the changes happening in the world right now.
Yeah, for sure.
And, you know, what really jumped out at me right from the beginning was this whole concept of a lasting impact. You know, like it's something that I think a lot of men think about, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's kind of like a fundamental drive, isn't it? To leave your mark on the world, to make
Yeah.
a difference, to
Yeah.
build something that lasts.
Exactly, yeah. And Ryko frames this lasting impact within this idea of a masculine legacy, right?
Yeah, he makes this really interesting argument that, men throughout history have contributed to this kind of shared wellspring of wisdom, strength, values. He talks about how there's this inheritance that we receive as men, but it's also something we have a responsibility to pass on.
Yeah. And he uses some pretty powerful examples to illustrate this point, too. He talks about, like, the founding fathers,
Right.
Galileo, Newton, Shakespeare, Da Vinci, like all these figures who, you know, left an undeniable mark on the world. And it's not just about their achievements, right?
Yeah.
It's about the qualities they embodied.
Exactly. It's about the courage, the strength, the wisdom, leadership, resilience. He makes you wonder, are these truly timeless qualities? Are they woven into the very fabric of what it means to be a man?
Yeah, it's a pretty compelling argument. And it gets even more interesting when he tackles this whole concept of, toxic masculinity,
Oh, right. Yeah.
which, I mean, that's a term that gets thrown around a lot these days.
Oh, absolutely. And, Riker doesn't shy away from it. He acknowledges that certain expressions of masculinity can be harmful, definitely.
Yeah.
But he challenges this idea that all masculinity is inherently toxic.
Right, exactly. Instead of just, throwing the baby out with the bathwater, he highlights examples of healthy masculinity, like in action, like,
Yeah.
fathers who are dedicated to their families, to providing for them, guiding them, men who mentor younger generations, individuals who embody positive masculine traits without resorting to those harmful behaviors.
Yeah.
It's a perspective that I think is really needed right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about finding that balance, recognizing that strength and vulnerability can coexist. And that's a really key point, I think, this idea of balance.
Yeah.
It seems to be at the heart of what we're looking at here.
Right.
This whole idea of rediscovering those positive aspects of masculinity and figuring out how they fit in today's world.
Absolutely, yeah. And, this is where things get, well, interesting and maybe a little controversial, because Riker dives into what he calls the war against toxic feminism and cultural Marxism.
Oh,
And
right.
he argues that these ideologies are actively trying to undermine traditional masculinity.
Yeah, this is definitely a complex area to wade into.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important to understand Riker's perspective within the context of, the broader societal debates happening right now. He's drawing on this line of thought that sees toxic feminism, as a movement that often vilifies men and tries to dismantle traditional gender roles. And he connects this to cultural Marxism, which is a term used to describe kind of the perceived influence of Marxist ideology on our cultural institutions.
Yeah. And he traces these ideas back to the Frankfurt School,
Right.
which was this group of intellectuals who were very interested in how culture shapes society. And, Riker seems to suggest that their ideas have had like this long-lasting impact on how masculinity is viewed today. Like it shaped our perceptions in a lot of ways.
Well, it's true that the Frankfurt School's work has been, incredibly influential. But I think it's also important to remember that this term cultural Marxism is often used in very politically charged ways. So, as we delve into this part of Riker's argument, I think it's important to approach it with a critical eye,
Yeah.
These are definitely complex topics with a lot of different perspectives out there.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit
Sure.
and talk about vulnerability.
Okay.
This is a theme that comes up like again and again in Riker's book.
Yeah.
And, he points out the conflicting expectations that are placed on men, right? Like be strong, but also be vulnerable. It's like a double bind.
Yeah, it's this kind of impossible situation almost, and he really brings this to life with a really poignant anecdote about a young boy learning to suppress his emotions.
Oh, right.
And it really illustrates how those societal pressures can lead men to hide their vulnerability.
And he doesn't stop there, though. He goes on to explain the potential consequences, right, of emotional suppression.
Yeah, the things that can happen when you bottle everything up.
Right.
The emotional outbursts, the depression, the anxiety, all those mental health issues that can arise. It's like he's saying, hey, bottling things up doesn't make you strong. It can actually do some real damage.
Yeah, yeah. And what's as fascinating is how he kind of flips the script on strength, right?
Mhm.
Like he argues that true strength includes vulnerability.
It's about knowing when to be tough, when to hold your ground, but also knowing when to let your guard down a little bit. Allow yourself to be authentic.
That's a powerful idea.
Hmm.
It really challenges that traditional, stoic image of masculinity
Right.
and suggests that embracing vulnerability is actually a sign of strength, not weakness.
Absolutely. And that raises an important question, doesn't it? I mean, how do we reconcile that traditional ideal of masculine strength with this need for emotional vulnerability?
Hmm.
I mean, Riker seems to be suggesting that it's not an either situation.
Yeah.
It's about finding a way to integrate those seemingly opposite forces.
Okay, let's move on to resilience.
All right.
So Riker defines resilience as the ability to deal with stress, trauma, hardship,
Mm-hmm.
all those difficult things that life throws at us,
Yeah.
and to emerge from those experiences stronger, wiser,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's something we can all relate to, right?
Oh, absolutely, especially in the times we're living in.
Yeah, exactly. And he connects resilience to a few key things. Overcoming adversity, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
being physically and mentally fit,
Right.
having a strong sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And he emphasizes that resilience isn't something you're just born with,
Right, right.
It's something you cultivate
You build it.
by facing challenges, by building that inner core of strength.
And I love how he connects this back to the listener directly.
Oh, yeah.
He emphasizes how important resilience is for navigating the challenges we all face, both personally and as a society. It's like he's saying, look, we all go through tough times, but it's how we respond that defines us.
Okay, now let's talk about fatherhood.
All right.
So Riker is incredibly clear about how crucial fathers are, right,
Mm-hmm.
in shaping the next generation.
Yeah.
And he talks about the impact fathers have on a child's development, how they transmit values,
Right.
all that. And he doesn't sugarcoat things either.
No.
He expresses some serious concern about the negative societal consequences of fatherlessness, particularly for boys.
Yeah, boys who grew up without that strong male role model. And he really drives home this point that fathers provide this unique type of guidance and mentorship that's so essential for a young man's development.
Hmm.
And he's not just talking about being a biological father. It's about being actively involved in your children's lives, shaping that next generation of men.
Yeah. He encourages, listeners who are fathers or who will be fathers someday
Mm.
to really embrace that role, that
Mhm.
responsibility.
Absolutely.
It's a really powerful message, especially in a world where the traditional role of fatherhood is, often questioned, undermined even.
Yeah, it's almost like he's speaking to this larger anxiety that I think a lot of men
All
feel
right.
about, how fatherhood is changing in modern society. And
Mm,
and Riker seems to be pushing back against this idea that fathers are becoming irrelevant.
right.
He's arguing that their role is more crucial than ever.
Okay, let's dive into this topic of male leadership and authority. So Riker draws a really clear distinction between leading with authority and authoritarian rule.
Yeah, he's not talking about being a dictator.
Right, right.
He's advocating for ethical leadership, the kind that's grounded in purpose, conviction, a strong moral compass.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that he provides examples of, both historical and contemporary male leaders who embody these qualities, and he
Yeah.
doesn't shy away from figures who might be considered controversial,
Right, right.
But he focuses on the principles they represent, right,
Mhm,
right,
mhm.
rather than getting bogged down in specific events or historical debates.
Yeah, he's making the case for a particular type of leadership, one that's based on on strength, integrity, a commitment to something bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
And I love how he connects this back to the idea of the masculine legacy. It's like he's implying that true leadership isn't about pursuing power for its own sake.
Right.
It's about utilizing that power to create a positive impact on the world, to build something that will endure.
All right, get ready for a bit of a mind bend here.
Yeah.
Riker, he introduces these Jungian concepts of the shadow and the persona
Oh, right.
as essential aspects of the masculine psyche. And he dives into some deep psychological territory here.
Yeah.
He explains how integrating these aspects can lead to a more balanced, a more authentic sense of self.
Yeah, this is where things get really interesting, right? So the shadow represents those hidden, often repressed aspects of ourselves, the parts we don't want to acknowledge.
Yeah.
Whereas the persona is that mask we present to the world, the image we want others to see.
Right.
And Riker argues that integrating both our shadow and our persona, it allows us to achieve this more complete and genuine sense of self. And he encourages listeners to take a good look inward, to engage in self-reflection and explore their own shadow and persona.
It's a powerful idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
It challenges us to confront the complexities of our inner world, and to embrace both the light and the dark within ourselves. And it's like Riker is suggesting that true masculinity isn't about denying those shadow elements, but about acknowledging them and weaving them into a whole and balanced self.
Right. It's about integrating those parts of ourselves that we might not be so proud of, but that are still a part of who we are.
Now, let's talk about relationships.
Okay.
Riker, he highlights the importance of understanding traditional gender roles, while also acknowledging that, those roles have evolved and need to adapt in the modern world.
Yeah, he emphasizes several qualities that are really vital for healthy relationships.
Yeah.
Leadership, courage, sacrifice, respect, boundaries. He's presenting this vision of masculinity that isn't afraid to take the lead.
Right.
But does so with respect,
Yeah.
and a deep understanding of the needs of others. And he stresses the importance of understanding women's perspectives and cultivating empathy. He really challenges that idea that men and women are fundamentally at odds,
Right.
Instead, he argues that they can complement and support each other in really meaningful ways. And that's where Riker's argument gets really interesting. He advocates for this type of masculinity that is both strong and sensitive, assertive, but also empathetic. And it's like he's suggesting that it's this balance that enables men to thrive in relationships and contribute to a more harmonious society.
Next up, male bonding.
All right.
Riker explains why male friendships are so crucial. They provide support, they encourage personal growth, they help us navigate life's challenges.
Right.
But he's also honest about how hard it can be to maintain these bonds in modern society.
Yeah, he talks about how busy lives, social media, this culture that often discourages close male friendships.
Right.
All of these things can make it really difficult to prioritize those relationships.
Right. But he urges listeners to fight for these bonds, arguing that they're essential for a man's well-being.
It's about having that tribe, that group of guys that you can depend on, who will challenge you to grow, who will always have your back.
And this speaks to a deep-seated need that I think a lot of men feel, that need for connection, for a sense of belonging, for a shared purpose. And Riker seems to be suggesting that male friendships can satisfy those needs in a way that other relationships often don't.
Okay, this next one might seem a little counterintuitive.
All right.
Bear with me.
Okay.
Riker talks about the role of competition. Oh, interesting.
And he frames it as a driving force in human evolution and a source of personal growth.
Right.
He discusses both the benefits and the challenges of competition in the modern world, emphasizing the need for healthy competition.
Right, competition that promotes growth and doesn't become destructive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating how he connects this back to the idea of resilience, right? Okay. Like he suggests that when approached in a healthy way, competition can actually build resilience. It can teach valuable lessons. And ultimately make us stronger.
Yeah, I like that.
Now let's talk about mentorship.
Okay.
So Riker explains why it's so vital for both personal and professional development,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
both for the mentor and the person being mentored.
Right.
And and he encourages listeners to seek out mentors and to become mentors themselves,
Mm-hmm.
contributing to that passing down of masculine wisdom from one generation to the next.
It's about keeping that flow of knowledge and skills and values going,
Right.
It's about recognizing that we're all part of this larger lineage.
Yeah. And he talks about how mentorship can provide guidance, support, accountability,
Right.
all those things that can help men navigate the challenges of life and reach their full potential.
Yeah, it's about having someone who's been there, who's walked the path before you to guide and support you along the way.
Okay, we're in the home stretch now.
Right. All right.
Riker talks about this need to balance pragmatism and idealism
Mm,
when tackling societal challenges.
yeah. So he's encouraging listeners to think critically,
Yeah.
and apply both practical solutions and philosophical approaches to problem solving.
Right.
He's making the case for a type of masculinity that's grounded in reality, but also inspired by a vision of something better.
And I think this pushes back against that stereotype of men being, either all brawn and no brains or all talk and no action.
Mm-hmm.
Riker seems to be suggesting that it's precisely this blend of practicality and vision that allows men to make a real difference in the world.
Absolutely.
Now, this is where things get a bit more pointed.
Oh, okay.
Riker addresses what he calls the deconstruction of modern masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about the forces in society that are trying to dismantle traditional masculinity. He
Yeah.
specifically points to cultural Marxism and radical feminism as major players.
Yeah.
And he doesn't hold back.
Right.
He criticizes the impact of these ideologies,
Yeah.
emphasizing that erosion of traditional values,
Yeah.
the promotion of victimhood narratives,
Right.
and what he perceives as the emasculation of men.
Yeah. Yeah. This is definitely a sensitive topic,
Mhm.
and it's important to remember that these are complex and often controversial topics.
Right.
And while Riker's views are strong, they're not universally shared.
Right.
But he is raising some very important questions, about the changing roles of men in society
Right.
and the challenges they face navigating a world that often seems hostile to traditional masculinity.
Okay, to wrap up this section, let's talk about Riker's vision for the future of masculinity.
Right.
So he encourages listeners to reclaim their masculine identity,
Mm-hmm.
to embrace those positive qualities like,
Yep.
strength, resilience, leadership,
Yeah.
having a sense of purpose.
Right.
And he envisions a future where traditional values are respected
Mhm.
and men and women can thrive in their complementary roles.
Yeah, he's really painting a picture of a society where those differences between men and women are celebrated, not seen as something to be erased,
Right.
and where men can step into their full potential.
It's a call to action, right?
Yeah.
He's urging men to step up, to take responsibility, to
Yeah.
lead the way in creating a better future. And it's like he's suggesting that the future of masculinity isn't about clinging to the past. It's
Yeah.
about evolving, about adapting, but
Yeah.
but staying true to those core values.
And that's a powerful message. It really resonates with that deep longing that I think a lot of men feel,
Mhm.
the longing for purpose, for meaning, for a sense of belonging to something bigger than themselves.
Yeah. And that brings us to the end of part one of our deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground, but we've still got plenty to unpack. So be sure to join us for part two, where we'll explore even more insights from creating lasting impact.
Welcome back to our deep dive into creating lasting impact. Before the break, we were talking about Riker's vision for the future of masculinity. It's, a really complex topic, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this section. Like, what else stood out to you?
Yeah, one thing that really stuck with me was how Riker emphasizes the importance of understanding women. Like he talks about the need for empathy, really understanding their perspective, even as we reclaim our own masculine identity.
Yeah, it's a really important point, I think. He's not advocating for just going back to those old-fashioned roles,
Yeah.
rigid. He even delves into some of the biological differences between men and women,
Right.
and he argues that those differences aren't, inherently negative, but actually contribute to the richness and complexity of human relationships.
And he uses this brilliant analogy, I think, of yin and yang, those
Oh,
those seemingly opposite forces that actually complement each other
right.
to create balance.
It's not about erasing the differences, right?
Exactly.
Or pretending they don't exist. It's about recognizing and appreciating those unique strengths that each gender brings.
Hmm.
And this ties into his discussion of traditional gender roles.
Right.
He acknowledges they've evolved over time,
Yeah.
but there's still value in understanding the historical context
Right.
and the underlying principles behind those roles.
Yeah. Like he talks about how men have traditionally been seen as the protectors,
Mhm.
the providers,
Right.
while women have been the nurturers, the caregivers.
Mhm.
But he's really careful to distinguish between leadership and domination.
Yeah.
True masculine leadership, he argues, it isn't about controlling others.
Right.
It's about serving,
Mhm.
protecting those you care about. He even brings up this concept of servant leadership,
Oh, yeah?
where you put the needs of others before your own.
It's an interesting approach, isn't it? Like he's weaving together all these seemingly disparate threads, traditional roles, modern expectations, and this whole concept of serving others. It's like he's redefining what leadership looks like
Right.
within the context of masculinity.
Yeah. And it makes you think about how those qualities, the strength, the courage, the sacrifice,
Hmm.
how they've been kind of woven into this idea of a masculine legacy throughout history. And, it's not about glorifying war or violence, but acknowledging that there's a certain type of heroism that's been linked to masculinity.
Yeah, and he talks about, figures like firefighters, soldiers, police officers,
Right.
People who put themselves in harm's way to protect others.
Yeah.
But he also brings in contemporary figures, like Steve Jobs, Elon Musk,
Great.
individuals who took risks, challenged the status quo, created something new.
It's like he's saying there's this certain drive,
Mhm.
this willingness to push boundaries, to face challenges head on. That's crucial,
Yeah.
not just for personal growth, but for societal progress.
And this ties into that whole idea of the hero's journey, doesn't it?
Right.
That classic archetype you find in myths and stories across cultures.
Right.
The hero leaves home, faces trials and tribulations, and ultimately returns transformed,
Yeah.
bringing back, wisdom, knowledge to share with the community. And he even applies this archetype to our own lives.
Right.
He suggests that we all face challenges and we all have this opportunity to emerge from those challenges stronger, wiser.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful way of framing personal growth
Yeah.
within this larger narrative of masculine development.
Oh, this is where things get really interesting. He introduces this concept of supernatural aid.
Oh, okay.
The idea that we're not alone on our journey,
Yeah, right.
that there are these forces beyond ourselves that can help us along the way.
And he's not necessarily talking about, angels or miracles,
Right.
but he's open to the possibility that there's something larger at play, something that can guide and support us if we're receptive to it.
Yeah.
And he suggests that this supernatural aid can come in many forms.
Right.
A mentor, a friend, a teacher.
A book?
Yeah, even a book that speaks to you at just the right moment.
Yeah.
A flash of inspiration.
Yeah.
A moment of profound insight. And he encourages us to be open to those moments, to pay attention to those synchronicities, the coincidences
Yeah.
that might be guiding us on our path. It's about trusting that intuition, that gut feeling that tells us when something is right or when something is wrong. And he also emphasizes the importance of faith.
Right.
And not necessarily religious faith,
Right.
but faith in something larger than ourselves. Yeah, faith in our own abilities.
Yeah.
Faith in the inherent goodness of humanity.
And this ties back to the idea of purpose, right?
Yeah.
Like this idea that we're all here for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
that we each have this unique contribution to make.
And And he encourages us,
Yeah.
to discover our purpose, to pursue our passions, and use that masculine energy to create something meaningful,
Yeah.
something that will leave a mark on the world. It's a powerful call to action.
But he's also realistic, you know?
Yeah.
He acknowledges this journey it's not going to be easy.
Right.
There will be challenges, there will be setbacks, moments of doubt, fear.
Right.
And Riker argues that it's through facing those challenges, overcoming adversity,
Right.
dealing with those setbacks that we truly grow, we develop resilience, we become the men we're meant to be.
Yeah.
He even goes so far as to say that failure is a necessary part of the journey. It's not the opposite of success, but a stepping stone along the path. We learn, we evolve through our mistakes.
Through our struggles.
Yeah.
And he encourages listeners to embrace the struggle,
Yeah.
to lean into the hard work, to remember that the reward isn't just the destination, but the journey itself, the growth, the lessons learned, the transformation that happens along the way.
He highlights the importance of discipline, of self-control, perseverance,
Yeah.
those qualities that help us stay focused on our goals,
Right.
even when things get tough. He even talks about the value of pain,
Oh, wow.
how it can teach us, those valuable lessons, make us stronger. And I know that might sound a bit harsh,
Yeah.
but he's not glorifying suffering.
Oh.
He's simply acknowledging that pain it's an inevitable part of life.
Yeah, it's unavoidable, isn't it?
And it's through facing that pain, not running from it, that we develop character, depth. He encourages readers to lean into their pain, learn from it, and ultimately transcend it. It's a powerful message about resilience and growth.
And this connects back to what he calls the warrior ethos.
Oh, yeah.
A code of honor, of courage,
Right.
that has guided men, throughout history. And again, it's not about aggression or violence.
Right.
It's about cultivating that inner strength to face our fears and overcome obstacles.
He talks about the importance of standing up for what's right.
Yeah.
Even when it's unpopular.
Yeah.
Even when it's difficult.
Right.
He calls on us to be men of principle, men of integrity, men who are willing to fight for what we believe in.
It's about leaving a legacy,
Yeah.
making a difference in the world, contributing to something larger than ourselves. And that brings us to the end of part 2 of our deep dive. We've explored Riker's perspective on overcoming challenges, finding purpose, and embracing that warrior ethos. Join us for part 3, where we'll wrap up our discussion and explore some of those key takeaways from creating lasting impact.
All right, welcome back to our deep dive. So we've really dug into creating lasting impact and explored some really, really interesting ideas. As we wrap things up here, I wanted to get your big picture thoughts on the book. Like what really resonated with you? What stuck out?
I think what really struck me was how Riker manages to weave together those ancient, almost like archetypal concepts of masculinity with the realities of, the modern world. He doesn't shy away from the challenges, right, that men face today, but he offers this really hopeful vision, I think, for the future.
Yeah. One thing that keeps coming back to me is this whole idea of purpose. Like it's not just about being a man, right? It's about finding your unique contribution, to the world.
Yeah.
And making it happen.
It's about living intentionally, I think, with a sense of direction, meaning, and Riker, he encourages us to tap into that inner drive, that masculine energy that's always been there. And use it to create something lasting.
And it's not about being perfect, right?
Yeah.
It's about the journey, the struggle, the constant striving to be better.
Yeah.
It's about embracing those strengths, but also, acknowledging our weaknesses.
Right.
Recognizing both the light and shadow within ourselves.
He reminds us that growth comes from facing those fears,
Yeah.
from overcoming adversity, from learning from our mistakes. It's in those moments of challenge that we build resilience and become the men we're meant to be.
And we don't have to do it alone either, right?
No, absolutely not. And Riker really stresses the importance of those male friendships, mentorships, building a strong community of support. He reminds us that we need that tribe,
Yeah.
that band of brothers to challenge us, to support us, to remind us that we're not alone.
So for the listener out there, right, who's
Yeah.
been with us on this deep dive, I mean, what does this all mean for you?
Yeah.
How can you take these ideas from creating lasting impact and actually apply them to your own life?
Well, I think it starts with self-awareness, like
Mhm.
Riker encourages us to really take a good look inward, to explore those hidden parts of ourselves, to understand our fears, our desires. It's an ongoing process,
Right.
but it's the foundation for everything else.
And once you have that awareness, right,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
about it's about taking action, right? Putting those
Mhm.
insights into practice in your relationships, your work, your community. It's about being the kind of man, you want to see in the world.
Stepping up, taking
And
responsibility,
mhm.
making a difference, leaving a legacy that will inspire future generations.
It's a powerful message, I think,
Yeah.
of hope, of empowerment. And if you're ready to, really explore these ideas further, we highly recommend checking out Creating Lasting Impact by Conrad Riker.
Yeah, you can find it on Amazon, Kindle, Google Play Books.
Yeah, definitely check it out. It's a book that will, challenge you, inspire you, and give you the tools to create that lasting impact on the world. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a great conversation. Enjoyed it.